Hello, everyone. We are doing a retcon here. So during this episode, you may notice that we are wearing different clothes. That is not real. YouTube has decided to alter our clothing for no reason. And we're recording this right now. This is the exact same time. This is just after. But what we both wanted to say is, first of all, thank you so much for everyone who's supporting and watching the podcast. But if you guys would like to support and enable us to take No Politic Here to the next level, to begin a No Politic Here insurgency, come over and support us on Patreon, where we offer a bonus episode, which this week, Isaac, what the hell did we just talk about?
This episode is about the Drake albums, multiple Drake albums, a little bit of a departure from our typical topics. We're also talking about Asmongold being very sweaty and jealous of the very sexy and beautiful Stavi baby. So those are the things we're chatting up over there. I'm also going to teach Chris how to be an audio engineer, teach him about little music things.
He's already been telling me facts that you guys would not believe, facts that you would not hear anywhere, facts that are so private that they might not even make it into the Patreon episode. That is how important the knowledge that Isaac can impart on people really is. However, if you guys want to see us talk about this kind of stuff, have a more, I don't know, bro tips kind of chat, hop over to the Patreon, or you can become a free member and we'll put a list of sources. And we were just discussing on weeks where we don't have like a huge amount of sources to throw out, we're going to just put out general things that we've been reading that week because both of us enjoy books. And for paid members, we will add like a little bit of what we liked about them and why we might recommend them. But for non-paid members, it will just be a list of sources that you guys can check out. So you want to become a free member? Go ahead. And eventually we'll make some of the episodes available to everyone, some of the paywalled episodes thus far.
Maybe we'll let the episode fly, the one where I tell everybody about the time I got molested, but I didn't really get altered too badly after. I'm totally fine, guys. Don't worry.
You can't throw something like that in, Isaac. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff. That is the kind of stuff you can be hearing about on Patreon. So if you want to check it out, guys, please do. And thank you already for all of your support and how much you guys seem to enjoy No Politic Here. And we hope you guys enjoy this episode that we just recorded and YouTube altered our clothes for. With Mason from OneHandPolitics. So please, guys, enjoy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Politic Here, best podcast in the world. And today we have an incredible guest, our first ever actual prominent debater. No offense, not that that's a bad thing. Our first ever prominent debater who has joined us today because we had a debate planned. I'm kind of giving it away a little right at the front.
But damn.
We were going to debate because I am a Kendrick Lamar fan and I believe Mason is a diehard Drake fan. So we were going to battle to the death over who is better.
And I thought that was Chris's thing. In the background, we were talking about One Dance.
I do like One Dance. It's fine. It's good. It's a good song to like.
I'm a diehard J. Cole fan. I like the piece. That's what I like.
Okay.
You know?
Did you listen to... Did you listen to, what's it called? The Fall Off? Is that his new album?
Honestly, I've heard a couple of the songs. I'm not super diehard. Actually, I really fuck with Kendrick too.
Okay,
so we'd be on the same side of that debate. We can debate over which album's the best, To Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City.
I might have to go with T-Fab. Slightly.
I think I'm going to agree with you, honestly.
All right, then there's nothing to debate.
I'm glad you mentioned those are like two of the only Kendrick albums I've listened to. So I thought you were about to say I thought you were about to say something different, Isaac, as well, because Mason, how prolific and how much do you use Twitter?
Oh, too much. That is probably my biggest vice.
Are you familiar with the Zionist content creator? I believe he was once referred to as the Zionist Franz Fanon, Adam Louis Klein.
Wait, what?
Someone referred to him as the Zionist Franz Fanon.
I think that was Bad Banana.
Oh my god!
I think it was.
That's so funny.
He's amazing. He responds to everyone with. If you're not familiar with him, he responds to everyone with like these really long, written out, contrived things that are loosely based in academia, and they're things like. I'm just looking. Internalizing the anti-Zionist gaze. That's a recent one. The manufacturing of scholarly consensus. A license to kill. Genocidal anti-Zionism.
It's so
He's like
obvious.
a ChatGPT reply guy.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's so
yes.
obvious that he like ChatGPTs his answers and his essays because they all have like those dashes and stuff. And it's not this. It's
Make me sound smart as fuck, ChatGPT, and justify genocide, please.
But to properly introduce you, Mason, also known as OneHandPolitics on Instagram and Twitter as well, I guess, right? And TikTok?
Yeah, one hand politics on everything. I got one hand, talk about politics. Very easy branding we got going on here.
Hell yeah. Didn't know that, but now I know that and it makes sense with the name
Now you know.
Oh,
You're
hell
right here.
yeah.
I think we've made a bit of a mistake with this episode, Isaac. I thought the name of the podcast was No Politic Here, and we've invited someone whose name is literally Politic.
That's
You know,
crazy.
sometimes we gotta bridge into different topics with you guys.
Yeah.
Damn.
It makes sense,
All right.
yeah.
Well, maybe
I-
you can pull us out of our comfort zone then. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I'll walk you through it. We can all hold hands or hold hand as we talk about politics.
Have you ever seen the lady who plays, she's Irish, I think. She plays rock, paper, scissors, and she only has one hand. And like her thing is she'll put
I've
it
seen
out
that.
and then, yeah.
It's just
She-
always rock.
Yeah, she chastised me once because I was live and I accidentally referred to Hezbollah as having dwarfism or used the term dwarf, which is offensive. But she chastised me and was like, "You're an ableist bigot," and I was like, "I don't even know what I said. I'm very sorry." But yeah, it was a bad day that day because
Maybe I can vouch for you then for the disabled community. I'll be your liaison.
Put in a good word, man.
you got to do some propaganda for me.
No, have you seen the viral video recently of the woman driving? She also has one hand, and the cop
Yes.
accuses her of using her phone while she's driving. And she's like, "What? I literally can't fucking hold the phone." It's so hilarious.
Is it?
So I
it's
hope she
real?
wins that lawsuit.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real.
Whoa, what
Yeah.
the fuck? Okay.
Have you seen it, Isaac?
No. But when you were describing it, I didn't know if it was like a skit or not because it sounds so unbelievable.
No, she's driving with one hand, and a cop pulls her over. The body cam footage just got released. She gave like her testimony, I think a couple weeks or a month ago, and she just got the body cam footage, so it's reviving on the internet. And the cop is literally like, "Yeah, I saw you holding a phone with your right hand, and I hope you know that that's illegal." And she just is like showing that she has no hand. She's like, "Well, that's not possible." And he's like, "I'm sorry." And then he's like, "Hand to God, you weren't on your phone?" Like verbatim. It feels like a skit.
Well,
And she's like, "Yeah, hand to God." I was like, "Oh my God. This is
Wow.
like the most beautiful thing that could happen to someone who's a social media person."
to be fair, you've got to. I don't normally like the police, but you've got to respect the amount of how he's committed to the bit there. That he actually continues with it. He like continues with it. She's like, "Are you serious? Right, we're done." And he goes, "No." He's like, "I saw you on your phone."
Yeah.
She's got like a retractable hand. It can go in and out. That's so crazy.
It is
She's
outrageous.
she's perfected balancing her hand like just on her palm.
How does it work driving? Is it like a modified car? Do you drive?
I do drive, yeah. Not really. I mean, it depends. Like there's severity, right? On different levels, I guess, of what you're able to use and functionality. Like I have a fully functional wrist, so like I can do I think the only exception of tasks I can't do is like monkey bars, like effectively. Other than that, everything else has just been pretty adaptable. And I was born with the way that I am now, so it's easy to adapt when you never have lost something. So a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, it must be so much harder." It's kind of the only thing I've ever known, and that's how it is for a lot of disabled people, especially that grow up with their disability. It's a lot harder to adapt once you've lost a function that you previously had.
Right.
So it's not anything that I'm not used to.
I also just realized that probably because you're in the US, you don't drive stick, right? You drive automatics generally.
The first car I drove was stick. Yeah.
Is that
So I have like my palm I can like
sorry.
basically control, maneuver, and balance everything. So it's not a huge issue.
Cool.
I just thought that people in the US didn't. I know in Canada, you don't ever really drive stick at all, do you? In Canada,
I got a couple friends who drive stick.
Mhm.
It's not that common though. Why in the UK is it like everybody got stick?
yeah, everyone drives. We call it manual or automatic. Everyone drives manual pretty
Manual?
much, unless you get a really fancy car. Like I remember, yeah, and it's also much more practical because if you learn to drive manual, then you can actually just drive any car. Although I've never driven an automatic, so I'm sure it's fine.
Really?
I'm sure
Wow.
So how do you text and drive then, Chris?
really well, mate.
How do you tweet and fight with Zionists while you're driving then, Chris?
do you know?
I don't do that. I don't do
I
that.
just
I'm
use my
joking.
Tesla, my Grok just drives me everywhere. So
Yeah, I've got Grok installed, and I'm chatting to it like it's my girlfriend, and then asking if there's ever a mean Adam Louis Klein response that I need to shut him down with. I just set Grok up on that. But no, I mean, I don't text and drive. Of course I don't. That's illegal.
I was joking. I was joking for the record. I don't either.
Yeah. I've never texted you and driven, ever. And that's not me being sarcastic. I promise I haven't. What was I going to say? Oh, shit. There's something I really wanted to say and now I've forgotten. Oh, well, who cares? Anyway, so Mason, you are like, as Isaac kind of introduced you earlier, you do a lot of debate-related stuff, right? Like you've done a lot of Jubilee.
Yeah, debate is like an interesting way that people always categorize it because I really label it political porn. Like, I think that a lot of it is theatrical. It is like these fiery, for entertainment purposes, exchanges of conversation. I think when I think of debate, I'm thinking of like Noam Chomsky and like, I'm thinking people like Michel Foucault, like actual academic debate of people who have studied this rigorously and can speak from a position of authority. Where the debates that we do, they're either paid propagandists, they're like conservative figureheads, or they're just random people that are plucked off the street and say, I'm passionate about this issue. And you get a lot of exchanges that aren't really grounded in empirical data or academic fact. It really is more of, this is how I feel about this situation. I want to argue it. Mm-hmm. And I've been brought on to a lot of these. They like my conversation style. I'm typically pretty aggressive because I know a lot of these conservatives before going into these exchanges. And what's interesting about the Jubilee, I think they prefer the secrecy because they think that it breeds more organic conversations or reactions to the talking points of these conservatives. So you don't know who you're debating until you arrive there on the day, which a lot of people don't understand. They think there's a casting call of like, hey, if you want to debate Charlie Kirk, sign up for this right here. When I did the Charlie Kirk one, it was literally one conservative dropout versus 20 college students. And that was the only thing that was advertised. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll talk to the college dropout about why college is important. I get there and it's fucking Charlie Kirk, CEO of Turning Point. Only 3 people in that circle knew who Charlie was before that video dropped, which is crazy to me.
Crazy.
So you have like 15 college students who are like, yeah, I'll talk to this guy. He seems kind of like whatever. He seems pretty lame. And then they're talking to one of the biggest conservative propagandists in the entire country.
I don't know if you saw that, Mason. When you mentioned Charlie Kirk, Chris's eyes lit up like he fell in love.
They really did. They really did.
Charlie.
Oh, you're a big fan, Chris.
I'm very intrigued by him. I'm very intrigued by him, especially
you were intrigued
posthumously. Posthumously. That's right. Yeah. I'm very interested. I'm very interested in the phrase "getting kirked," "being kirked," and all of these things. Yeah. And I couldn't believe that you've actually were in the same room as a man who has almost become a Jesus-like figure.
No, I met the Messiah twice.
Damn.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
It was once at USC and then once at the Jubilee.
Lucky.
Great times.
It's very lucky.
He was a bit dumb.
Yeah, he was, but very confident. And there's nothing worse than a confident dumb person.
Well, also, you debated Ben Shapiro too, and he's also slightly dumb.
I did debate Ben Shapiro. I think Ben is more malicious. Like, I think that he knows what he's saying is wrong, but he does it for like specific personal gain. You can tell that like he knows how to engage in a conversation and how to, walk away and pivot from things that he's not comfortable talking about. But he does it in like a very malicious way, which I think honestly makes him worse than like idiots like Dave Rubin or Candace Owens or any of these people.
For sure.
I mean, I guess like instantaneously, you kind of mentioned it. My major problem with debate is that, and I think this is like the best YouTube comment I've ever seen, was someone who described it as like, and related to Ben Shapiro, always saying like facts don't care about your feelings, but facts literally only care about your feelings. Most people are only receptive to facts on the basis that they make them feel good. Because if facts really didn't care about your feelings, people like Ben Shapiro wouldn't have ever had any motion, and neither would Charlie Kirk. I mean, the things they were saying were unhinged, and still to this day for Shapiro are incoherent. And if facts were really what mattered, that would be the defining thing.
Yeah. I mean, I have really mixed feelings about Jubilee. I don't regret doing it. I do stand by my participation. Like, my biggest reason is I think that the actual left needs to reach people where they're at, even if they're not already in their spaces. But I do think that the format it's not neutral. Like it takes these big structural questions about society, capitalism, war, occupation, racism, and it like pushes them into this like game show format. And that really makes like, it cheapens the actual struggle that people have to go through because of these issues. Yeah. And there's a journalist that I really like. Her name's Tayari Jones. And she has a quote that basically sums up to the middle is just a point equidistant from two poles. Like you can't find this middle ground, which Jubilee seems to make as like the core thesis of what their project is about, is finding empathy with different points of view. But just because you bring two contesting worldviews together does not mean that you're going to come to like a conclusion that makes everybody happy. And that is what I think the bullshit is of these types of debate shows. It's like, hey, we can bring on people who think that Black people are inherently violent, and we can bring others who just want equality and structural justice. Yeah. And they're going to come to an agreement or talk about their issues so that way they better understand each other. It's like, these are not worldviews that can compromise. Like that is it's a
very spiritually liberal, you know what, I might even say it's a very spiritually Israeli show, because it's always like, well, hold on, we're starting on completely different moral footing right now. You bring a colonizer and you bring a colonized person into a debate, and then you try and like force them to see eye to eye on something and strike a compromise. Well, hold on, because the premise is faulty. These are not morally equivalent in any way, shape, or form. I'm really, really curious about how you go about these, I guess, debates. Like, do you try to make it so that you kind of fit within the purview of what Jubilee wants from you? Like, where you guys kind of end up with something you agree on and you can all sing Kumbaya? Or are you adamant that you will not meet some sort of centrist resolution and you'll actually just kind of push for your position and you won't take...
Yeah.
Okay, so you won't take some sort of...
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely the latter. There's different shows that I've been on, and I definitely think my communication style adapts to whatever show it is. So like middle ground, you're not really given like an opportunity to just shout amongst everybody. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's basically like a 4v4 format, or sometimes it's a 3v3. And you really have to wait for your opportunity to speak, to kind of give your monologue. There's not a whole lot of exchange back and forth with that show.
Is that the one you did? Is that the one you did with Xena and James Fishback? Is that the one?
No. So that one's Roundtable. That one's a little different too. Okay. I've been on too many of these goddamn things. Okay. Roundtable is that one's more of like that's also, I guess, kind of similar, where there's more of a monologue, but you're definitely working with people that are at least somewhat similar ideologically to you. But the Surrounded one is the one that gets the most clicks. That's the one where everybody's in the circle. Yeah. It very much just feels like a fight to get as many jabs in as possible verbally. It really is like the WWE of like political debate, which is why I call it political porn. I think most people come into these videos just rooting for their side. And it's like this sick bloodthirst, like pleasure, and like, yes, I want to see someone get owned, which typically has been something that the right has championed. Mm-hmm. But I think that in the age of Trump, the left really wants to see blood too for right wingers. And it's created this like echo chamber where it's like the perfect viral bait, because if you get somebody like Michael Knowles, who goes in a circle of queer people and says transgender people need to be eradicated, the right wing is going to be like, yes, own those woke people. And the left are going to send it to their friends and be like, how could a show have someone on that says something like this? And it just breeds like this perfect formula for viral content, because both sides are equally pissed off or like excited, like that the other side is pissed off.
I think also people are always unwilling to admit about social media how much figures, and obviously algorithms know this, figures who annoy you, wind you up, are such a major part of why you use these platforms in almost like a sadistic way of like, you gain enjoyment from seeing people who ideologically you really don't agree with. And in the case of Jubilee, you know, sometimes like I watched their recent one I found unwatchable, the one of about the Iran war, because the MAGA people were so stupid. And it's
was
just
that the Glenn Greenwald one?
Yeah. And like I didn't agree. Like I didn't think Glenn Greenwald said everything in the way that that I would have myself ever done anything like that. But just listening to people try and like address his stuff about the Iran war, I think to me it's kind of like how, you know, a more productive or more important discussion basically pertains to accepting and understanding each other's basic worldviews. Like a lot of the people who are there who are like Zionists, who are pro the Iran war, would never enunciate it openly, but their position is they just like seeing people they dislike being mass murdered. And whereas Glenn Greenwald is like, hey, I want a better world, and you end up watching people quibble over kind of like meaningless facts and statistics, and where one guy who I've had some interactions with who was on there was like, do you know what Trump's 4 aims of the war are? Do you know what the 4 aims on the State Department website are? And it's like, seriously, you think that's the what the Trump administration puts out in a briefing is what we should trust, as opposed to their actions, their other statements, ones where Trump has been like, Iranians, it's time to seize your institutions. And I kind of just watch people quibbling over facts when realistically all of the facts are just in favor of the Iran war being an unmitigated, obscene disaster, except for a very select group of people looting the country. If you can understand, so I'm sorry, that was a very long thing, but basically just how we don't end up getting to the core, to the crux of what people actually believe and why they believe the things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's most important in these conversations, right? Is we should be getting to root causes of what is informing people's bias on this issue, instead of just like trading these statistics like Pokemon cards. Like, I'm going to beat your statistic with my statistic. And it's like, okay, well, this isn't bringing us to a broader consensus of what the truth is. And that's what I think a lot of these debate shows do, is it compresses the truth into something that doesn't even really exist, because it's almost making big political issues a fight of people that just have different opinions. And we just need to hear everybody's opinion to decide which opinion's the best. Which is like, okay, well, that's just not how facts work. Like, we should have a consistent factual basis in which it informs all of our political beliefs, not just because we like the way that someone is rhetorically.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think as well, because my background in everything related to Palestine is academic much more, it's kind of just like when you're reading stuff, it's not people quibbling over whether Israel has a right to exist or not. It's just not. Or when you're talking about a topic like genocide is like a hotly debated academic topic that nearly every scholar who's seriously engaged with literature on genocide is like, hey, it's much bigger than a legal definition and it needs updating. And the academic understanding of genocide now extends far beyond what the legal definition would permit. And yet you kind of have people who are now trying to tell you, when they don't really understand international law, oh, what about the intent? This means Israel can't have done genocide. When it's like, I can watch Israel tear apart the social fabric of, of peoples in Lebanon and in Gaza and in the West Bank and in Palestine more generally. And I can know that that's genocide because of my academic understanding, whereas these people want it to just be like, well, no. My favorite pro-Israel person has told me that there's no intent, so it can't be genocide.
Yeah, I think that it minimizes the actual experience of the people that are going through these conflicts into what is like the biggest PR move that a lot of these Zionist propagandists are trying to refine and polish. And yeah, it's bullshit.
So if you had to like kind of list off what you would perceive to be the pros and the cons of engaging in this medium, because debate, I'm sure there are benefits to it, right? Like you could change people who are on the fence. But as a medium for the sharing of knowledge and the enhancement of education, is it the most efficient way of going about that? I would probably say no.
Yeah, I think that there's like a diversity of tactics when it comes to mass communication. And I think that the digital infrastructure that we have today, it really is favorable towards like these confrontational formats. And that's not to say that that's the best way to synthesize a lot of these big, important issues. But I'm not going on Jubilee because I believe that it's a perfect medium. I'm going on because people are there, whether or not we like the format. I mean, these videos get millions upon millions of views. And in my mind, the left is going to be represented either by somebody who feels confident in their principles or somebody who lives in Los Angeles, where I live, who wants to go on a video that's going to get millions of views, might not be prepared for any conversation or any confrontation. And then it just further characterizes or caricatures what the left is in the mind of the conservatives or nonpartisan people watching. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like, my biggest reason of why I go on is because it's going to exist whether or not I believe that I'm right in going on or I'm right in not choosing to participate. And I'd rather go on, one, because I feel confident in what it is that I say, and I can take down a lot of these propagandists to prevent them from getting even more clicks. But also, like, there's this self-interest of like, I listen to a lot of these right-wingers on the regular, and I just want to tell them they're fucking dumb to their face.
Yeah,
fair.
And now I have this million view platform that is giving me an opportunity to go tell them to fuck off. I'm like, yeah, let me go do that. I'll go do that.
And you do it really, really, really well. Like, you're a very technically skilled debater.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I never did formal debate or anything. A lot of people ask, like, did you do debate in college or high school? I never did any of that. I just listen to a lot of political content. I keep up to date in what the commentators are saying. And I just know how bullshit it is. And I want to call it out to people. Like, I don't like letting them just go on their rants of why they think that equal rights are wrong and bad for society. I'm going to fucking yell at them.
Well, tell me your opinion on this, because a guy like you who is like technically skilled at debate, I can understand that. But tell me what your thoughts on this are. What if there's an individual who's maybe not very good at rhetoric, not a very good orator, but is incredibly knowledgeable, like knows way more than, say, a guy like, I don't know, fucking Destiny, who's read one book, and that one book is like Scars of War, Wounds of Peace by Shlomo Ben-Ami, and that's it. So say there's a guy who knows a lot more than him, but may not be the most technically skilled debater. Do you still think it's worth that person? Do you think it's worth it for that person to put on a spectacle and engage in a debate with Destiny if they may lose on the rhetorical front, but still come out on top on like the statistic or knowledge front?
Debates are not about truth. It really isn't. It is a performance. It is a sport almost, in a sense. I think that if you're not properly equipped to deal with that confrontation, then you're just going to fail regardless of how right you are on the issue. And someone like Ben Shapiro, who's wrong on 99% of everything he talks about, can appear like the smartest person in the room just because he's quicker with his words.
His motor mouth.
He can divert the conversation into something that's favorable for him. It's the same reason why Charlie Kirk was seen as this master of public debate. He has like 5 fucking pre-rehearsed talking points that he can direct any conversation that comes to him and take it towards something that's favorable in his mind. And that's what he would do on these college campuses. Yeah, master debater. He's like, I can answer any question. I'm not afraid of anybody. Well, someone will go up and be like, do you think what's happening in Israel is a genocide? And Charlie Kirk will be like, okay, well, first let's establish, do you think that Jewish people have the right to their own country? And then no matter what that person says, he has this fucking pre-rehearsed audio that he's just going to put on a loop every single time that question comes to him. And in the mind of his viewers, they're going to clap like seals and be like, look, this guy can answer any question. And I think that really is what debate is at the end of the day. It is a spectacle. I think some on the left are good at it. And I think some on the left should continue to do it just to make sure that those spaces aren't just overwhelmingly for the right. Especially like the left has a huge young men issue. We keep talking about how can the left get young men back. And I think especially like thinking of myself in like my mid-teens to like even early 20s, like sometimes you're like, yeah, that guy got owned in like the marketplace of ideas or whatever verbally. And I think that can be a way that like the left tries to reach those people. But I definitely don't think that everybody should like engage in that space. And honestly, it's probably better because you're going to really get knowledge and you're going to understand issues by going into the depths of those issues, whether it's video essayists or actual journalists. Or my biggest want would be for people to get their politics by reading fucking books, not by watching like YouTube shorts.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that there's a warning in there because, you know, when Charlie Kirk stopped staying on the rehearsed debates, Israel slimed him. When he started thinking for himself, he got smoked by Israel.
I was going to make a joke, but then I was like, is it too soon? Is 8 months too soon?
What were you going to say, counting or not counting countdowns? I was thinking about that.
When Mason was like, when Charlie Kirk talks about Israel, and I was thinking, talked, right?
Yeah,
spoke. Look where that got him.
Right,
that was what I was
right.
Mason, I saw. This is really. I saw because I was watching like your videos yesterday in preparation for today's episode, and your debate with James Fishback. I didn't know this, but that took place the day Charlie Kirk died, right? Because they had to
literally like 45 minutes after he was killed.
Crazy.
That debate happened.
And
so we all got the notification. We're in that room and there's like 30 minutes of prep where they're just like getting us mic'd up and they're just getting all the lighting ready. And all 4 of us are at the table and I'm just looking down and I look over to Zena, who's sitting next to me. I'm like, Charlie Kirk just got killed. And she's like, what? And then we're all just like talking about it. James was like a good friend of Kirk, which is crazy because I feel like Kirk would fucking hate him now.
Yeah.
They had the whole Groiper thing.
He's like a
or
Groiper, right?
Yeah.
They had the Groiper War.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Groiper.
The great Groiper War of the 2010s. Yeah.
Do you not know
Exactly.
about that, Isaac? Have you,
No,
do you know,
I was there, brother. I was on the front lines.
Yeah. He was defending Kirk against
I was
the
defending.
Nazis.
I was
Let's
trying
go.
to fend off the Nazis, bro. I made a temporary popular front, unified front.
No, but yeah, like James Fishback had to leave during our interview to do a Fox News like interview talking about how he's so sad about Kirk and Charlie was such a great man and all this shit. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. And I literally felt like I'm fucked no matter what I say here, because the very first thing that they bring up, the very first thing where they're like, what are your guys' thoughts on Charlie Kirk? I'm like, dude, what am I going to say? Am I going to be real right now? Am I going to just sound like an asshole? What do I say here?
I was watching.
I think I...
No,
What
I was gonna
was
say
that?
I was watching it with my girlfriend yesterday, and when like James was like, yeah, he was like a good friend of mine, and we were watching you because they were like asking you about it, and at first you're being very respectful, but then you like butt back in, you're like low key, I didn't fuck with like any of the shit he said either, and I was like, yo, he's still going, man.
No, I had to be like, I was like, how do I walk this line of like, I'm not going to get conservatives giving me death threats on the day that Charlie Kirk died.
Yeah.
But also, I got to be real and be like, yeah, this guy fucking was not smart. But, you know, he shouldn't have died, I guess. I guess it was bad that he got executed in front of everybody.
I would have done
Whatever.
the same thing. I'm not good with confrontation like that. Like this guy's like nearly in tears next to me. I'm not going to be like, your boy, low Kirkanually kind of fucking sucked, dude. I'm not going to do it right there.
Yeah. It was really fucking like, as much as I don't like the guy, I've said this before on all my live streams or whatever, like, I don't think that the left gained anything, honestly. I think probably the opposite. I think the right got this like martyr that now is like worshipped on the right, which kind of sucks. Like, I'm not someone to say that political violence isn't useful, but I think that tactically for like people in positions of power, it's much more useful than like just a propagandist who's going to get replaced by another propagandist. And for me, it was like, watching that video, I was like, it was fucking like there is like a human element of like this
Of
violence
course.
is like
Yeah.
crazy. And that's how I feel every time I see, you know, fucking Palestinians in rubble, or I see anybody that is a victim of state violence or political violence, as I think that the right should, or even that the liberals should. The fact that I saw so many Democrat politicians condemn this, but they can't condemn it at the same level for the actions of Israel or other states that conduct even worse violence. It blew my mind, and honestly, it pissed me off more than it did like cause me to have empathy for a racist piece of shit like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, the interesting thing is like when it happened, I do remember people making videos that were like, you know, you need to be really careful. And those first few days, you know, the Trump releases the thing, he's like, I'm going to crack down on everyone. But then I look at it now, and I'm like getting videos of P. Diddy going on dates with Charlie Kirk when he's meant to be married to Jeffrey Epstein on my For You page on Instagram. And it's kind of like, Jesus Christ, man, is this what the legacy of entertaining people for so many years is? If you're just a piece of shit, you know, just everyone thinks it's hilarious and that you're now married to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that. Like, I don't know if it's like a more of like a making fun of Charlie, but I was reading this article from Taylor Lorenz about the Kirkification of all these memes. And honestly, it like almost preserves his legacy as like somebody to continue talking about. And it's probably helped Turning Point more than it's hurt. Like, I know their fundraising went fucking through the charts after he died. So I don't know. I don't know if it'd be better if we just never talked about him again, or if like the memes do better at like bastardizing his legacy.
Yeah, I because like when it first happened, my first thought was that I don't like this because I don't know how the Trump administration is going to respond. Like, I think that this could really, you know, what if he suspends free speech? We've seen him be very, you know, loose with the liberal freedoms you guys enjoy over there. So
am I the only American here?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Damn.
I was just
freedom
Canadian.
is just low
Yeah,
here.
I'm Canadian. So I was like, bro,
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they're going to crack the fuck down on these people. And then I was so fucking wrong. Like, everybody's Kirkifying everything. He's on like NBA young boy raps. He's like rolling weed in the car. It's like Kirk's face. I'm like, all right, I guess we're just an unserious bunch, I guess.
Yeah, because previous podcast guests, we didn't talk about it, but I don't know, you're probably familiar with them. You know, Dean and Parker, the two big TikTok debaters.
Yep.
So she appeared, Covey, who did our Sudan episode, she was on it because she was like, and she did not endorse Charlie Kirk's killing, but she was like, you shouldn't police people's reactions to this in the sense of, a lot of people are reacting to this and kind of are showing no empathy because of how much harm people like Charlie Kirk have inflicted on them. And I think that, like, my opinion was always someone being shot at, someone who doesn't live in like a gun-centric culture at all, someone being shot at a college campus is bad. And it's indicative of a wider problem that someone can do that. And so I think that that's always been what's defined it for me. And you're right, like it doesn't achieve anything. You know, you're right. Charlie Kirk is, no one is as irreplaceable as you. Well, some people are, but Charlie Kirk certainly was replaceable by a legion of other shitty propagandists, you know? And people now have, like Candace Owens has no doubt exploded her career off of that to now spread unhinged anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about...
And interviews with Hunter Biden, my goat.
I like that, though.
That was funny.
She's a difficult figure because I like it when she's talking to Hunter Biden, who's just like, I don't know. The funny thing is as well, Hunter Biden being pardoned, being a scandal in America is so funny because maybe it was that I was not terminally online enough during the 2019 Trump administration, but I don't think there was that big a stink over Eddie Gallagher getting pardoned, the Navy SEAL who murdered like a wounded ISIS fighter, and he was pardoned. He killed a really young boy who was wounded and was being treated, or he was alleged to, and then his trial was it was a little bit funny, but all of his Navy SEAL teammates who normally have like an oath of secrecy were like, yeah, this guy's a piece of shit, you know, he's awful. But, you know, when it came to Hunter Biden, we all cared so much about him getting a pardon.
It's so crazy how the right's able to capture like these narratives, because Hunter Biden being a scandal for like being a drug addict and also like being on the board of like a gas company in Ukraine, which is just like clear nepotism shit, but not technically illegal. And then they completely are silent for someone like Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Jr. creating venture capital cryptocurrency firms that Saudi Arabia is investing in. Like that blows my fucking mind. And I don't know how the right is able to make these narratives so large. I think it's because they're so unified, I guess, at the media level. But like that is not talked about nearly enough, that the Trump family is easily the most corrupt in American politics. It's crazy.
I think it's also one thing that doesn't help is when it comes to how the media reports on Trump, probably the only scandal that I don't think he was able to navigate very well was the Epstein scandal. And I think because obviously, you know, it's pretty difficult, especially when there's the 2002 interview where Trump's like, Jeffrey Epstein likes women as much as me, and some of them are on the younger side, you know, a kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink that he's a pedophile. And also the fact that he sent him that kind of creepy, which was actually shown in your debate with James Fishback, the creepy
the letter.
Sort of,
the dress thing.
You like how I busted that out? I was like, yeah, let's talk about this now.
The best bit of that was when James Fishback was like, what is this? And then he knew the date that it was made public. I implore everyone to go watch this. It's bizarre.
No, that's the best part of the right, is just playing dumb when you know literally every fucking detail. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
But I think as well, sometimes I think it's that actually it definitely is. It's from Joan Kopchek's book. It's like a psychoanalytic book about Lacan. And she's talking about Reagan. And she's like, the thing that the media don't get is that people didn't love Reagan in spite of the scandals. They loved Reagan because of the scandals. Like people like this whole like Trump sort of being an everyman, this like businessman image that he's cultivated. And, you know, you look at like, the UK is just, I don't know if either of you have seen this, Tony Blair, ex-Prime Minister, has come out and told us how we need to be close to Trump and we need to get things done and like get rid of net zero, which is our policy of trying to reduce carbon emissions to zero, which Britain has actually surprisingly been somewhat successful at. But he's like, oh, we need to get rid of that. We need to be near Trump. We need to be doing all this deregulation. We need to focus on AI. Part of me thinks like, you know, every scandal that Trump faces, like the ones about him grabbing women by the pussy and all of this stuff, have never done much damage because that's always what he was, this figure who's outside the establishment. And so these scams, like people are just like, well, every politician's corrupt and Trump's just a businessman.
Yeah, no, people see it as success. Like, look at, he's building his wealth. That's the game of this country. Like, why would you criticize somebody for being successful at capitalism? It's like, okay. But yeah, I don't know how closely you guys are following the Texas primary. Ken Paxton just won the Republican seat. So Ken Paxton and John Cornyn. John Cornyn's currently the incumbent senator. He just lost a Republican primary against Ken Paxton, who is riddled with scandals, not just scandals for felony fraud charges. He like advocated for this security firm when he was Attorney General of Texas. And then he got not just accused of fraud, but he was convicted of fraud. And then he paid like some settlement so it didn't go to trial. And then he was impeached by the Republican-controlled state house. And this man is the guy who beat the incumbent senator, John Cornyn, who literally has connections to John Thune, all of the central Republican leadership in the Senate. And it's almost exactly what you're saying. Republican voters embrace these scandals as evidence that like these are people going against the system. If this person has been hit by fraud charges or sexual assault allegations or all of these liberals are crying about them, that means they must be great. And it's like, dude, this is the backwards thinking is just so fucking cultish. And that's a term that's used so much, but it's accurate. It is a cult.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely engage with the more electoralism of America than both of us do. Like, we don't really. I can't say we are super clued in because I'm Canadian, he's British. But I'm actually interested in your opinion on electoralism because on this show we've been kind of critical of it, not necessarily as though we should throw it away, but more so that it should be supplementary as opposed to the primary source of political persuasion. I think like when it comes to electoralism, I'm never going to tell people not to vote or to vote or whatever. I don't really give a shit. But I just think it's not enough, especially in America.
Yeah.
And when we do go down that route, I don't know. Well, I mean, personally, I'm not a fan of candidates like say Graham Platner. I really despise him. And it's interesting to see a lot of people on the left and even people who are friends of mine who I don't necessarily think any lesser of for their support for Platner, but I just severely disagree with them. I find it really hard to get behind an electoralist candidate who, kind of presents himself as progressive on certain things, but is a veteran, a 5-time Afghan veteran, Merc. I don't know. Maybe I like to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, no, I'm usually known by my leftist friends as the shit lib of the group because I love electoralism. I just love it. No, I'm just kidding. I do think that like the primary concern for Americans should be building a labor movement. And that's done through unionizing the workplace and also just organizing in your local community. And I say that on my stream all the time because I do cover a lot of electoral politics. Mm-hmm. And most people just assume that I'm just a vote blue no matter who and everything will be fixed. That's not true. Like you need to build tenants unions in your local community. You need to have mutual aid groups. You need to do direct action. That's the only way that we're going to build like a militant labor movement that actually forces policy changes instead of just hopes that celebrity politicians are going to be the ones to implement that. I absolutely agree with that. I do think that electoralism is devalued a lot because I think that it does build this consciousness in people that a better world is possible. Mm-hmm. Say what you want about Bernie Sanders. There's a lot of important criticisms of Bernie. He's not a perfect person. He actually has a lot of really bad flaws. But I think that Bernie Sanders in 2016, being the runner-up candidate, not even the nominee of the Democrats, and now socialism amongst Democrats when polled is at like a 62% favorable rating from like a 7 or 8% back in 2015. Mm-hmm. Those margins are insane. And I do think that it builds like this energy that people are ready for something better. And even if it's not channeled in the right way yet, especially in America with decades and decades of Red Scare propaganda, that a better world isn't possible and you should just feel happy and content with liberalism and incremental change is the only way we can do things. We have to follow Ronald Reagan's neoliberal guide. Mm-hmm. I think that people identifying with socialism because of these broader politicians that are making it more palatable for people, that is something that needs to be recognized. And I don't think that they should be worshiped or celebrated. No politician's a celebrity. But I do think that electing more progressive candidates can instill that type of energy in voters that we need to go beyond just like the social democrat policies or liberalism that's within a society. My
big concern with a guy like Bernie, aside from the Zionism, which I don't think I'll ever forgive him for, same with AOC. My big concern with them is, and I agree with you for the record, just to start with that, I do agree that moving the political zeitgeist to the relative left, especially in America, which is a country that is incredibly relatively right wing, especially if you want to compare it to like whatever other contemporaries. I think it's important to do that, but I also am hesitant, as of right now where I stand, I'm very hesitant to push like Bernie Sanders or AOC as though they are convincing people that socialism is good, because what my fear is that since they don't actually advocate for socialism, and it is pretty much just like social democracy, my big concern is that people think that that is what socialism is, and then they give up the fight for something better, like some sort of worker cooperatives, some sort of genuine socialism as opposed to just social democracy. So what would your opinion be on that?
Yeah, and for the record, you can totally disagree with me. I'm a master debate bro, so I love engaging in confrontational formats.
Yeah,
it's totally fine.
I'm very anti-confrontational.
I'm just kidding.
So I'm just trying to learn, brother.
No, I agree that the policy prescriptions of someone like Bernie Sanders is not what is required to actually emancipate the working class, right? Like, you're not erasing any contradictions that are inherent in the system that actually breed negative outcomes for people. What you do is you build a collectivist mindset. Yeah, is
Take
you
that
build
debate,
a collectivist mindset in an individualist world. Like, we've been groomed to believe that everything is the fault of individual actors who make bad decisions, and that's the reason why poverty exists. And regardless of which side of the political aisle you're on, that's still inherent. I mean, you have someone like Karen Bass, who's the mayor of LA, that's supposed to be this progressive haven that is encouraging homeless encampment sweeps. This is not leftism. This is not collectivist mindsets. And someone like Bernie or someone like AOC, for all the faults they have, one of the biggest things that they emphasize is union representation. And I think that the energy and the camaraderie that you have in your union is actually what's going to create class consciousness in people. It's not AOC or Bernie Sanders, but they are a step in pushing people in the direction where that mentality can actually be built. Because it's not going to be built by, following Bernie Sanders' Instagram or thinking that AOC is going to be the savior of the world for 2028. Like, none of that is true or actionable. But I think that it certainly does wake up the conversation for people that feel like a better world is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've always been quite invested in hope. And I do think a lot of people try and find solace in the end. Like, right-wingers find solace in the end of the envisionment of some kind of project where all of the obstacles to like unlimited, enjoyment is just gone, and those normally being immigrants and anyone who is different to them, no matter how ridiculous that might be. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of leftists also find it in nihilism that the world is going to end, that we're just on a path to destruction, or that things are guaranteed to end in terms of things like, Israel. Like, I do think, well, that's probably a broader conversation, but yeah, like in terms of just people trying kind of get away from this by through the solace of kind of like the end. And I do always find people who engage in like, I won't say I'm engaged heavily in, local activism and things related to that, but doing like stuff like the Palestine encampment, it was very interesting, like how different that is to social media, of doing something real, of trying to advocate for change, and how hard and how difficult that is in terms of you get beaten back a lot. And it's very easy to feel like, what even is there any point in this? And I don't know, I guess like what I'm kind of trying to get at is, what you were saying, Isaac, of like how some people are just like, well, these politicians are the end. But I guess the thing that supplements that is like local activism and union, like engaging in political work in your, local area.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way that you're going to build security for yourself and your neighbors, regardless of what administration it is, right? Is people banding together with the people that are the most immediate to them and ensuring that you have each other's backs. Because oftentimes politicians don't do that. They're opportunists, or they're career driven, or they're people who sometimes just say things to get elected.
Yeah. The other big flaw I see with electoralism, especially in the US, since like, you don't have ranked choice voting or anything and it's first past the post, is just the duopoly structure, like the two parties. From my very limited vantage point, I will say, because I'm Canadian, it seems as though it makes sense to at least strive to build a third party movement, if for no other reason than to leverage it against the Democrats and try and push them left. But what I see so often with leftists in America who engage in the electoralism is that the end all be all for a lot of them is just to get people into the Democratic Party. But, the more left variant of the Democratic Party, and that ends up just being people like Platner, war criminals. So I don't know. You would know more than me because you're American. How viable is that strategy of building a third party movement and then eventually leveraging it against the Democrats to pressure them to go left?
Yeah, I mean, you speak to a lot of the barriers that prevent outside participation or, external parties from reaching that like national prominence. And I know a lot of leftists like I'm blanking on her name right now, but there's a lot of leftists that say that, the Republican Party is an example of a third party because they dismantled the Whigs and they were able to become like this prominent party in American politics with the nomination of Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's true to an extent, but the Whig Party collapsed because of their they had a disorganization when it came to the issue of slavery. Like you had half the Whigs that wanted abolition, half that wanted to preserve the slave structure. And so you'd have to have like a collapse of that party for there to be a new party. And in my opinion, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think Chris might be able to speak more to like the problems with even like a parliamentary system where you still have to build coalitions with other parties who you vehemently disagree with. Yeah, exactly. So I think that the two-party system is pointed to as like the primary issue, which I think is true in a lot of cases. But I also have a lot of problems with parliamentary systems, especially in like the United States where our labor movement is so fucking weak just because of decades of union busting or deregulation. Like we need a stronger labor movement to build power within like a central party, even for a parliamentary system to work, that won't concede on things that are essential for worker emancipation. And I don't think we're at that place yet. I think that it probably might be even worse for workers in a parliamentary system if that was implemented in the United States today. So I think that this like the co-opting or the infiltration of an already prominent infrastructure to build towards more progressive ideals, I think it is viable. And maybe that's hopium, maybe that's copium. I don't know for sure what the future holds, but I have seen like the issue of trans rights be completely transformed in the last 15 years. Like when I was growing up, that was unheard of, that like a prominent party would, with open arms, like be an advocate for trans rights. And now we have that. And you could say what you want about Kamala Harris or like Gavin Newsom and people willing to throw trans people under the bus. There's also a lot of progressives who are unashamedly like, no, we're not going to touch trans rights. We're not going to touch gender affirming care. This is essential that we need to prioritize and protect for people. And that's what I always think of when like I talk to a lot of accelerationists who are like, it's actually better that Trump is in office because it's going to push more working class people to realize that the system is inherently flawed against them, and that might create more organizing. And I think taking that gamble it really does put a lot of marginalized people at risk. And that's just something that I'm not willing to do as of, I can't do that.
I've never fancied myself an accelerationist because I understand also from my position of privilege, I'm a white dude. If things do accelerate, I'm fairly insulated, but my trans friends, my friends of color, they're not as insulated as I am. So it's easy for me to, push for accelerationism. Another thing that I really hope for with the electoralist movement in the US is, say you do take the route of co-opting the Democratic Party infrastructure and pushing it left from within, which, there are people who advocate that. I don't want them to forget about the global South, because a lot of those, like even the labor unions in America, sure, like I'm for workers' emancipation. Obviously, I'm a socialist, right? But in America, it seems often, not just America, in like the global North, it seems like a lot of these labor movements seem to brush past the fact that the resource drain, that the annual resource drain of the global South so that we can get our treats and we can get our benefits, it always seems to be forgotten. And there's also the fact that the consumption costs, the environmental consumption costs for the way we live up in the global North, that is often shouldered by the global South. And, maybe call me a third worldist, Maoist or whatever, but I would like to see a lot of these more, these left movements in the global North speak to this more often. And when I see a guy like Platner, so I'm really sorry to bring him up again, but when I see a guy like Platner who, and I'm not saying like for the audience, Mason, I don't know what Mason's positions are on Platner. I'm not accusing him of being
Dude, I'm a huge Platner head. I got my hat back there. No, I'm just kidding.
But when I see a guy like Platner who did 5 tours or 4 tours wherever, and then went back with Blackwater or the subsidiary of Blackwater or whatever, and now is running on better benefits for veterans and for, strengthening the military and things like this, it strikes me as though he hasn't really learned the lesson that we kind of would like for him to learn. So I don't know. What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I think that speaks to like the broad flaws in social democracies, right? Is we're building all of these treats, or we're building all of these universal programs for the people who benefit from subjugation and who benefit from exploitation. And I think that that absolutely has to be recognized if there's ever to be reconciliation or a sustainable future. Because I even tell people, like, let's say you're not like somebody who has that empathy for the global South. Even if you're just looking at things from like a sustainability perspective, or like the cohesivity or the cohesiveness of your own country, like destroying these regions is going to cause an influx of refugees, which will then like make your country worse. So even if you're the most selfish-minded person, us exploiting the global South benefits nobody. It is all thinking in the short-term gains that we get. Because long-term, we are not just destroying the planet, but we're also destroying the lives and the sustainability of these systems in general. And for me, if you're going to be long-term minded, I tell people all the time, the right always talks about thinking of, governance as a business. Think as a business. Think of the long term, what this does to your business. You're gonna fuck over everything. Not just like the investments that you have domestically, but internationally as well. And I think that the only way that we can come to a sustainable future is to right those wrongs, is to recognize that degrowth is absolutely essential, because the way that our consumption rates are now is not sustainable for the long-term future. And yeah, I think that we need more candidates to do that, but I think that we need an awakening of the American people before candidates see it as advantageous to like make that a central piece of what they run on, which is like a doomer answer. But it is an unfortunate circumstance that the plight of people who are being exploited outside of the US is just not on the priority list for a lot of Americans, which is fucking absurd. We need to change that.
Yeah, but to Canadians too, man. Like, I'll be talking to people up here and like sometimes I'll just outright be like, I don't care. You're a third worldist. All right, fuck you, man. Like, what am I supposed to say?
Because
it's crazy.
I mean, something that I do find worrying or bleak about this is kind of the problem of this odious desire to cling to Israel at the point where it is totally unpopular, where it is destructive, where for the first time ever, you may actually, be able to reach out to this middle ground voter by being solid on Palestine. Yeah. By being not wishy-washy, by being straight up like, hey, I am totally against Israel. It was a total moral failure. And well, actually, you know what? That's not even necessarily the case. I'm talking more, not even people who go that deep. I'm talking more people right now, like the Labour Party in the UK, where it extends beyond literally just sanctioning a couple of people involved in the most violent actions of the state of Israel, but yet maintaining relations with that state and allowing our citizenry to go over and fight. And I think if such a large and such a groundswell movement like the pro-Palestine movement was unable to do, well, actually, you know what, then I'd probably sit here and say we're talking about 3 years, which is obviously, you need it to happen now because of what happened in Palestine. But yeah, I guess if it's unable to stop a genocide, I do kind of worry about the future of like these political parties and whether you'll ever be able to get them to change, because it's literally disastrous to cling to Israel politically. It's been disastrous for the Labour Party. The Green Party is sapping their base, and amongst a big group of people, it's Muslims and young left-wing people who are like, fuck no, I can't go near the Labour Party. And in the same way in the US, I'm sure that it's sapping the basis of a lot of Democrats of their desire to kind of be wishy-washy on Israel at best, and kind of Bernie has sort of cemented himself not only with his Zionism, but his desire to refer to people like Castro and Chavez as dictators.
Fuck off.
Yeah, it's outrageous on the case of Chavez. It's not just like an opinion. That's wrong. It's wrong. And I kind of worry about that. If these parties haven't changed now, when will they? If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. And that's the skepticism that needs to remain, especially for people who are elected officials. If you're not questioning authority or you're not criticizing authority, then you're not fulfilling a worldview that actually wants to better your society, right? Like we can't just give these wholehearted approvals or endorsement to people simply by the platitudes that they talk about on the campaign trail. You have to hold these people accountable and hold their feet to the fire. And the only way that these politicians actually get scared is when collective action is the one that's criticizing them, right? Like, and if we don't have that collective action, I think that we're putting steps before what is feasible. And for me, the first and foremost thing that people should be prioritizing is building that community within their own immediate vicinity. Electoral politics is something that I tell people to participate in, but almost to like, it's the least important thing that you have immediate access to change some variables within your society or the power within your society. And I tell people all the time, I think the Democratic Party is an enemy of the working class. I think they actively work against their interests. But I think that seeing the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as the same level of strength of an enemy, I think that that is a miscalculation. And if the working class are able to beat out their enemy, which is the United States empire, we should want the weakest enemy possible. And in that mind, I think that the Democratic Party is a much more feckless, impotent party than the Republicans who are willing to create the most authoritarian society possible in order to stamp out labor. And that's the way that I like try to translate it to people. It's not an endorsement of Democrats, even social Democrats who claim to be progressive, but it's recognizing that the enemy that I could face or the working class could face is much different in between these two parties. I
agree with you, especially when it comes to domestic politics. Place I would disagree is foreign policy. I think foreign policy, Democrats and Republicans have been pretty much one for one. Like maybe Trump has been a little bit more aggressive than your average Democrat would, but he's like an anomaly. Because when I think of horrific...
Well, when you see like Chuck Schumer say that we can't invade Venezuela unless Congress votes on it, it's like, okay.
Yeah, like come on, bro.
There you go.
When I think horrific foreign policy blunders, I think the first leg of the genocide in Gaza, Joe Biden, Libya, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton.
Standing her was disastrous.
In the Yugoslavia,
Standing her was disastrous. She was so associated with Libya.
Yeah,
and then the disaster that it was.
And Yugoslavia. I mean, and it's even with the progressive Democrats is you just get so, what's it called? Let down? AOC, this is supposed to be a harbinger of progressivism, and some people thought anti-Zionism, and she can't even condemn funding for the fucking Iron Dome, the mechanism by which Israel can maintain its defense while it genocides people. Same with Zohran Mamdani. I liked the guy a lot in the beginning, and I'm always down to give people a chance, but after so many times of just me feeling confident or supportive of an individual just for them to get into power and then seemingly kind of betray the face that they put on. I don't understand why Zohran has to keep Jessica Tisch as the police commissioner when she's a raging Zionist. I don't understand why he has to condemn the Palestinian protesters, the pro-Palestinian protesters who are protesting illegal land sales at synagogues when they're selling illegally occupied land that has been occupied in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. Why can we not why can't people protest those? It's just I guess a feeling of constantly being let down that kind of prevents me from being so optimistic with electoralism, I guess.
No, absolutely. I don't think that the saviors are in the people that are in elected office, and I think that's important for people to recognize. FT Signifier has a great analogy for voting, but he says that voting should be like washing your hands. And I'm going to look at someone a little different. I'm like, whoa, you don't wash your hands? But washing your hands is not the end all be all for being a good person, or even recognizing what is true in a world, right? I personally think that you should be equally disgusted when Zohran Mamdani or AOC messes up as you are when Trump does something bad. Those should be equal feelings of discontent for the status quo or for who are in positions of power.
Yeah. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No. I mean, the only thing I did want to add is, as I said, third parties don't even really help that much. In the UK, the Labour Party spent their time attacking the Green Party at the previous election and being here's some anti-Semite in the Green Party or someone who's said something that, was allegedly anti-Semitic or has spread some insane conspiracy or whatever. When it's it's just come out that some reform councillor in the UK had a swastika tattoo on his arm, that there are literally photos still on Facebook of him having a swastika tattoo. Another guy who was like, we should melt Nigerians and use them to fill potholes. And the Labour Party spent their time going after the Green Party, and they had this really obsessive thing of calling like Zach Polanski a hippie lunatic, when his diagnoses about the UK are much more correct about like some of our problems and our malaise and the issues that we're facing, and it doesn't push the Labour Party anywhere,
so you're
even though
telling
they
me,
need to be pushed by it.
So you're telling me the Labour Party took their time to attack
Reform
Polanski
Party.
As opposed to those.
They attacked Polanski.
As opposed to the reform.
They did. Yeah.
Holy fish hook, man! What the fuck?
I know. It is kind of crazy, and the whole thing. But it's also a big part of our media apparatus, you know, in the UK, that like we're very dominated by Rupert Murdoch and the new emergent insurgent channels. I mean, British media is also very cliquey. Like, it's weird that I know Hasan, but I don't really know anyone in British media. Like, I don't. It's odd. It's really unusual that none of them over the last 3 years have thought, oh, hey, here's a young British person who does Palestine-related stuff, who knows his shit. Maybe he'd be fun to have on.
Yeah, his name's Chris Consular. His name is Chris Consular,
Chris K. Middle East. Chris K. Middle East.
Chris K. Middle East.
Do you guys know? Do you guys know Naomi Klein?
Yeah.
The author Naomi Klein?
I'm not familiar.
She's like an author. She writes pretty based books. The Shock Doctrine is like a really good one of hers. But her husband, Avi Lewis, is actually, he just won the leader of our relatively left-wing party, the NDP. So he's now the head of that. So again, I'll approach it with like the same. I'll approach it with a clean slate, and I'll give him his chance to prove himself. From what I see so far, he's a very based guy. His wife is a very based lady. So
yeah, ultimately, I think that like we need to give people that aren't politically minded like examples that excite them to engage in politics, especially for the US. I can't speak to Canada or the UK, but there are just so many voters that are like apathetic, and you'd think that would build like this energy or this consciousness in people being like, yeah, fuck the whole system, burn it down in general. But I think that we are so sedated with the treats of liberalism, or what people feel is like a comfortable life that they're striving for, that it's really hard for people to feel that like an immediate revolution would be in their favor, at least right now. And so for me, I'm like, well, getting people into politics where they can recognize there's solutions to a lot of these problems. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. We understand what works, and we understand the people in power that are preventing these from being implemented. The only reason why it's not happening is because the people are afraid of actually rising up, or the people are afraid of holding those people accountable who are preventing these essential policies and changes. And for me, it's like I view electoralism as that entry door to get people to, it sounds like I'm advocating for entryism, but I view it is that like entry door to get people to at least change their perspective on these types of issues. That's the way that I view it, I guess.
Our last guest, Lily Agla, actually said something to us that kind of resonated. And she said, if electoralism had absolutely no utility, then there wouldn't be billions of dollars pumped into opposing candidates to prevent, relatively progressive people from gaining a foothold. So that did make sense to me. Like, obviously,
Lily said that,
and she's
my queen. She's my anti-electoral queen.
Yeah, right. So like,
no, we actually had a talk. We were at a Palestinian fundraiser, and we were just going off on just different politicians. And I'm not going to relitigate that convo. She's not here to defend herself. But we were having a great conversation about it. I love Lily. I think she's great.
She's awesome. But it made a lot of sense to me. And I'm not a guy, like, I mean, you could probably tell from everything I've said so far, I'm not a guy to fucking stand politicians, or even like relatively left democratic ones. I'm not a big electoralist myself. But I'm not going to say there's no utility whatsoever in it. I just think it's supplementary.
100%. Yeah, it should be secondary to everything that is needed right now, which is that mutual aid and collective action.
Yeah, I think as well, something that I do think is exciting and invigorating in politics is most definitely Fanon kind of speaks about this in The Wretched of the Earth. He's like, what the third world asks is that you leave the ranks of the oppressor, the slave master, and join hands with the people of, what he would have then termed the third world, perhaps what is more apt now to call the global south. But I guess the way in which, so much energy, like I knew this, like I was, the amount of numbers that my early TikToks were doing around Palestine related stuff were crazy. The amount of young people predominantly and older people, you meet them, you see them at marches, like the marches for Palestine in the UK initially were crazy. The amount of people there. And I think I worry about this frustration of hope around this stuff related to, Palestine and the third worldism is fine, because so much of it just pertains to a similar stuff to what you're saying about like domestic politics. Is the fixes are there, and it's just that our foreign policy is so outrageously horrific. And I'm not even here just speaking of the more murderous and barbaric episodes of it, but the collaboration with the most oppressive dictators who we normalize, who we say, well, it's fine to have a relationship with them, whilst we have to deal with people who scream about what's going on in Iran, which is, of course, barbaric. But yet none of them, and most people don't even care to learn. Saudi Arabia has protests. Saudi Arabia has dissident populations, particularly Shias in the south of the country. Bahrain had a really powerful democratic movement. And by the way, a lot of because how people view the Arab Spring of 2011, they actually see it as like, oh, it was because of social media or some bullshit. It's not actually true. If you look at the countries that had the most successful revolutions, it was because of years of really strong protests, years upon years of powerful trade unions that many of like Bahrain, I believe, had a very strong steel trade union, if I remember correctly. And the Bahraini authorities since then have taken a huge amount of organization against, have implemented a huge amount of policies against that because it was such a threat to them. And I think that there's kind of this thing of like viewing it as just this moment that came out of nowhere, that because most people don't care to learn, because it's not, necessarily the most exciting part of Middle Eastern politics, because it's not necessarily the part that led to the revolution that people had once hoped for. But my goodness, it is like an incredibly interesting moment at which you see how collective organization, how major collective sacrifice and regimes losing the last vestiges of legitimacy that they had can collapse in on themselves so quickly. I'll keep this very short, but like one of the reasons that Iran collapsed in 1979, according to Ervand Abrahamian, the Iranian scholar, is literally because of the 1953 Mossadegh coup, and because the Shah could never get legitimacy back. And I do wonder at what point the snap is where we've lost our legitimacy.
Yeah, no, 100%. I also think that's what's so counterintuitive about the United States justification of invading Iran to topple the regime, because these types of invasions only reinforce that these authoritarian regimes are necessary to keep stability or fight back against Western powers. And it's like, if you actually gave a shit about the dignity of the Iranian people, which we know that they don't, you wouldn't invade to give them this opposition to point all of their blames to, instead of the actual regime that's doing the harm.
It's kind of crazy as well, because I'm really interested in, which we were kind of going to talk about, and I guess we will get into, how Lebanon will develop as Israel goes deeper and deeper against the first time that they've ever faced a country who has now major access to drones that are just inevitable. Now that not only are young Israelis being killed, there are videos of them running for their lives from FPV drones, something that people thought was going to happen with Iran and American soldiers. And you kind of look at this thing of like, hey, you guys, your whole argument is Hezbollah's got to go, they're evil, they're barbaric. What invading has never worked.
Look at what happened in Nome Hamburger. Look what happened in Nome Hamburger, bro.
Nome Hamburger, yeah. Are you familiar with this, Mason?
No, I'm not.
An Israeli soldier called Nome Hamburger was killed by an FPV drone the other day. And his name has certainly been a source of comedy.
Yeah.
No way. That's
Nome
real?
Hamburger.
Yeah, I did.
I'm going to look it up, and it's going to be some Family Guy joke or something.
No, genuinely. That's what my first assumption was.
Yeah.
But
the
Israeli military posted Staff Sergeant Nome Hamburger has died.
Is now on the grill.
I guess for like the because we obviously didn't want to do another episode about Iran. We've already done so many. But I mean, yeah, I guess it would be interesting to hear your thoughts about what's unfolded in Iran over the last 3 months nearly.
Real quick, I have to confirm that Sergeant Noam Hamburger does indeed exist. It's either an Israeli soldier who lost his life in May 2026 or the iconic former Israeli eatery, Norman Steak and Burger. It could be one of those two that you guys are referring to.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I'm sorry, repeat the question. I was rudely distracted.
Just your general thoughts about like the last, it's 3 months today, I think.
Yeah. We're 2 weeks away from a deal. Don't worry about that. I mean, Donald Trump is the king of making deals. He wrote a book on it. It's very clearly going to happen. But I think it's just like the arrogance of the Trump administration, who I think did this war that politicians on both the left and the right have been salivating for decades. Trump is finally the one to pull the trigger. And I think in large part, it's because the ego of the man, obviously. Two, I think it's surrounding himself with war hawks who are the most bloodthirsty people in the country. And three, I think it's like his invasion, quote unquote, of Venezuela is what made him feel invincible. And I think that Trump is very legacy driven. I think he wants to be the person to do these unprecedented actions and have it go down in the history books. And that's why a lot of people say I'm alarmist, but I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump drops a nuclear weapon or he uses artillery that has never been used before, because he wants to be the person to do that. He recognizes the significance of unprecedented action, and he likes that. That is like what fuels him more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, because the Moab was something that really interested me when they used the mother of all bombs. Because the thing I didn't realize is they basically used it on ISK, which is the Islamic State of Khorasan, which is just like a small offshoot of the Islamic State. They just used it on like a tunnel complex that was hard to penetrate. And that's the only reason that they used it. They literally just used it for a spectacle. It's really insane to think about. And I mean, the whole thing with this that I kind of think is my also major problem is it really does kind of show you how racism and ignorance dominates both sides of the American political spectrum, in the sense of like this just belief that you can do whatever you want, that you can get rid of these regimes through military action, because America has the most powerful military in the world. And yet, you know, it's never really won a war or achieved its aims in any case. Because fundamentally, in a case of like what legitimizes the Islamic Republic in Iran? Western interference in the MENA region and Palestine. It is this discrediting, and loads of liberals do this too when they kind of like dismiss Hezbollah as like moronic, who just ruined Lebanon. One of the things that they seem to just discount is this, like so many people here have this bizarre desire to cling on to the notion that Israel should exist because of anti-Semitism, because Jewish people experienced, you know, experienced a grotesque extermination under the Nazis and also in Europe generally. But they completely disconnect the feeling that people have in the MENA region for Palestinians. You know, just this.
I was reading about the first Gulf War, and all the way back then, like you could see Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait, and he goes, "You're going to tell me to pull out of Kuwait. You're not going to tell the Israelis to pull out of the occupied territories." And he formally made the link between what he was doing that actually led to the Madrid negotiations and the Washington negotiations that followed, because that action, that linkage, pressured the Israelis via the Americans to engage in, you know, peace negotiations.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why you see so many young people identify with the words of somebody like Osama bin Laden in his letter to America.
Yeah.
And all
Chris
of these right-wingers are saying...
he has a poster of him.
All of these right-wingers are like pointing at that and being like, see, this is proof that like the ideology of being anti-Israel is summed up with like this terrorist action. And it's like, no, these actors have used the horrific war crimes of Western powers as justification to do what they want. And that has always been the case because you keep doing horrific actions. If you want them to stop having justification, you have to stop committing the war crimes. Like that comes before any other further action.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And as well, it's kind of like when I was watching someone debating and they were like, do you know how many Palestinians supported October the 7th? And it's like, how are you surprised about this? There's actually a psychological element of, apparently, one of the most radicalizing things is being powerless while seeing your guardians being humiliated. Yeah. So a lot of young Palestinians experience their parents being beaten, their parents being killed, their parents being like taken away from them after having
Sexually
done nothing.
abused.
Sexually abused, tortured, and everyone in Palestine, and they experienced the occupation. So are you really surprised on the first time that Palestinians scored a major blow to the Israelis, in the sense of it was a complete failure of the myth of Israeli invincibility, that whatever had happened that day, that Palestinians were like, no, you don't, this, for the first time in the longest time, you feel like we do. You feel this experience of loss, of being subject to violence that you subject us to every day through the occupation. And yet, you know, we live in a world where the structural violence of Israel is just totally fucking discounted.
Yeah.
And the strategy of those Zionist leaders to deal with the radicalized Palestinian population who support Hamas is to further bulldoze and destroy everything else that they have. Like, in what world is that going to de-radicalize people that you already feel is radicalized, unless your ultimate goal is ethnic cleansing, which we know is the goal.
Do you know, I learned a crazy fact this week, which is, I just discount it because it was moronic, but in 2005, bombings perpetrated by Hamas went down loads, and that was the year that the apartheid wall was half finished. So people could have still got round it technically if they'd wanted to. People could have got into Israel. Sure, it would have been harder, but it had gone down from a peak of 50 in like 2002 or 2001. 2002 it would have been, to I think like 7, I think the number was. And the reason that had actually happened is because Hamas had said, right, we're not going to do that anymore, because the Americans had said, you can have an election in the across the Palestinian occupied Palestinian territories, and also Israel's going to disengage and withdraw from Gaza. Palestinians became focused on even Hamas, you know, this organization defined a lot by its militancy, was like, we're going to use politics as our means to resist against you. And they did that. And they did do it. And they won the election that the Americans organized, that then they were punished for winning.
Yep.
But it's like,
well, then even after that,
see, oh, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, even after that, in June of 2008, they signed an Egypt-brokered ceasefire, and they abided by it. And then in November of 2008, Israel was the one that broke the ceasefire and led to cast lead. Hamas has proven time and time again that they would actually abide by the ceasefire, because they have. So, sorry, I just wanted to add that.
I mean, they're currently abiding by a ceasefire right now, and Israel's killing their leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just feel, I think if I was thinking about how you debate this, or how you even like reach across to a liberal Zionist who kind of is like, well, you know, Hamas are evil, so some of the stuff Israel does is justified. The biggest part is to say, well, hang on a second, what you desire is peaceful existence for Jewish people. Surely you must realize that in order to attain that, you need some kind of different politics, because Israel has never achieved that through its military might. It has never address the issue of Palestine. And so the issue will persist, and there will never be safety. There will never be some kind of equitable existence for, I mean, obviously Jewish people in Israel do have like, you know, obviously there's differences based on your ethnicity, but they do live in like a society where things are good for them, obviously not for the Palestinians who live there. But until there is equality, until there is dignity for Palestinians who are dispossessed, what's your expectation?
And I mean, that's why you see so many Democrat leaders who fumble over their words saying, I can't believe the Benjamin Netanyahu government would do something like this, just because they're seeing the visualization of almost a century of apartheid. Like that is not the core issue of what's happening right now. It is the logical and inevitable conclusion of what Palestinians have been subjected to for so long. And until you recognize that contradiction, you're never going to see that issue go away or change.
100%. Do you think that there's going to be a deal with Iran at the moment? Or?
I mean, I think eventually I think the U.S. is going to have to pull out, and I don't know if Trump has the
humility.
I don't want to say humility. I wanted to say that, but it's just not even like he has the ego to go into it in the first place. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what Trump's going to do. Honestly, that's the one thing about American politics that I think has changed in the last decade is everything is just not predictable. There's so many variables that can happen. But I think that the logical conclusion is America's going to lose this war. There's no way that we can virtually take control of the Iranian regime. This is a very populated country of tens of millions of people. We're not going to be able to just hold all those people down. We couldn't even do that with Iraq or Afghanistan. The fact that there's any outcome that U.S. politicians think can lead to the U.S. gaining, I think is just a flawed mindset.
Because, I mean, actually, you'd probably be very well equipped to answer this question. I'm pretty confident Trump will lose the midterms majorly because of Iran, because unless they get a deal, basically now, there's already a massive gas price hikes, which fundamentally undermines one of the sole things Trump has relied on, which is a good economy. And the economy's doing well for people who have, investment portfolios. It's been very resilient. There's seemingly not this bubble that some people have claimed is relating to AI. But what will be the major consequence if he loses the midterms? Just having his hands tied a tiny bit more, or?
Yeah, I mean, the midterms are also just like a unknown variable because there's so much action right now from the Trump administration to tip the scales in Republicans' favor for the midterms. I mean, we're seeing the gerrymandering war that's happening virtually everywhere in the South and also in other states that have supermajorities in the state legislature. And Trump is now threatening that he's going to send ICE agents to polling stations to intimidate voters. So I honestly don't really know about the midterms either. I think that there is a foreseeable possibility that somehow Republicans can maintain control of the House just through the sheer force of the federal government alone. But if everything does go according to plan, I'd say 75% chance that the Democrats take the House, if not the House and the Senate. And I think Trump never really gives a fuck about checks and balances. I think that's another thing that his administration has proven is this symbol or this idea of checks and balances don't really exist when you have a federal government that's willing to do anything. And Trump's willing to do that for his base and for the interests of the most wealthy oligarchic people in America. And honestly, I think it's waking up a lot of Democrats to the idea of, okay, all these excuses that we've heard from Democrat politicians that you can't advocate or work on behalf of working class people, it's kind of bullshit. Trump's just ignoring court orders left and right.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that for the interests of the working class? And that's tangential, but yeah, I think that Trump's going to do whatever he can, even if he loses the midterm elections. That's, I guess, summed up in short.
My big concern is now that the Democrats have seen this behavior be carried out by the Republicans, is they're going to do the same thing. They're just going to think, well, fuck, the gloves are off now. Trump did this shit. We don't really have to walk back some of these things. Especially Cuba. Cuba has been a bipartisan strangulation for decades. It was actually JFK is the one who kind of ramped up the Eisenhower sanctions into a full spectrum embargo. And also the Torricelli Act of 92. Torricelli was a Democrat. My big concern is that since Trump has spread himself so thin on these foreign policy blitzes, really, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, I think it actually gives the Democrats kind of cover for when they do inevitably win back power. I think it kind of gives them cover to not do anything about ameliorating the situation that Trump started in Venezuela or in Cuba. I don't know, because maybe I'm just fucking a doomer, but I'm still of the opinion that they are in lockstep when it comes to foreign policy. And I still believe that a lot of these Democratic Party officials are kind of happy with what Trump is doing, especially when it comes to Cuba, because that's been, like I said, a bipartisan project for forever.
Yeah, I think my only pushback to that would be we see how unpopular it is amongst the American people. And I think now, especially just with increased technology and communication infrastructure, people are able to see the effects of war unlike any other point in human history. And I think that's why Palestinian support has grown so significantly amongst the American electorate.
Yeah.
It's because you can't escape those visuals. The only way that you can justify that is by buying into the propaganda that is told to you by the people in power that are committing those atrocities.
Yeah.
And I think that for the American people to be bought into a pro-war mindset, I think is near impossible without some attack that happens on the homeland that galvanizes support like it did in post 9/11. And until that happens, I really don't see any politician running a successful platform on pro-war positions. But I do see what you're saying where you might run on an anti-war position as Trump did and then get in and just completely go against that and fucking invade Iran.
Yeah, because most of the doors that he's gone after to like kick in have been rotted for quite a while. Like Iran was rotted by bipartisan sanctions. Cuba's been rotted by bipartisan sanctions. And I guess it's seeing things like, is it Amos Hochstein? Yeah, Venezuela too. Venezuela, of course, was the most rotted, where Maduro had basically lost any kind of... Like, Maduro did not have the legitimacy, seemingly, even amongst the people who surrounded him, because they were happy to do away with him, or Delcy Rodriguez seems to have been. But Iran's putting up resistance, and Cuba putting up, whatever resistance, and I'd say more resilience in the case of Cuba, because it has obviously not been militarized resistance, but one might call it resistance as well. But anyway, anyone who's actually put up resistance has basically made it impossible for Trump to actually do these kind of the things that he's sort of tried to do. And it looks like Iran will be the most disastrous foreign policy quagmire, embarrassing one at least, of the last... Obviously, Iraq was more of a disaster for the people who live there, but it seems that this will be more of the embarrassment, because it's a total failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to see like his entire base go against it is it's both like, it feels good, but those goddamn boomers, dude, they're literally drones. Whatever Trump says, they just go with. And that, I think like the Texas runoff is indicative of that. I know you guys didn't see it a lot, but the fact that Ken Paxton went from like 2% to winning the nomination just because Trump endorsed him is just like a testament to how bought these people are, that Trump is literally the savior. It's crazy.
The crazy thing about that as well is Thomas Massie. Like the fact Thomas Massie lost, and the only group he lost amongst is 65 plus.
Yeah.
Like, pretty crazy. That is such
insane.
And it'll be the same thing in the UK. Like, the Reform Party performs so well. And actually, I listened to someone talking about this recently. So the Reform Party recently, like, had a major victory in the local elections. But apparently in local elections, older people generally tend to vote, specifically even more so in the local elections. And this is a party for boomers in the same way that the Republican Party is increasingly for boomers, and is alienating its sort of potential Christian Zoomer, well, not even just Christian, but Zoomer base, like of people who, were once full-throated supporters of the Trump administration, who are now kind of like, well, I like Palestine and I don't think people should die. And by the way, you are 100% correct about the thing about how our media has changed that, because in Lebanon in 1982, the scenes were actually really similar. Israel ordered saturation bombings. They were burning people alive. They were bombing people who were in basements, who were trying to survive and flee the Israeli bombardment. And newspapers had a big effect of like showing what's going on in Beirut. But the second this has now been infused with live coverage from the incredible journalists who are on the ground in places like Palestine, in Lebanon, who are doing the bravest work imaginable, risking death. You add into it this element of people getting these images instantaneously. And perhaps there's something to criticize and worry about that, of people taking on trauma that is not their own, and being traumatized by images that, and thinking, and like starting to believe that those images, that they're the people being traumatized, as opposed to the people who are actually living that and experiencing a kind of trauma that you have no understanding to grasp of, like what it's actually like being in that situation. But it certainly has made a difference, and it's pretty clear clawing that back is hard, and boomers only have so long left.
I don't know if you guys, do you know that podcast, The Necessary Conversation, with like the old boomers, and they're like super right wing? Do you know what I'm
Is that the
talking
one
about?
where it's like the son that's interviewing his parents?
Yeah. Well, I saw a clip of theirs a few days ago, and they were telling their mother that Trump is actually going after, well, I guess the Treasury is going after, but I think they said Trump is going after Hasan Piker due to his humanitarian efforts in Cuba. And the mother actually sided with Hasan. She sided with Hasan. And these are people, watching their earlier content, these are people that seemingly were very, very stubborn. The father still is. But the mother openly said, yeah, I'm siding with Hasan Piker over Donald Trump on this. So it's possible.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just because she engages so much with younger people. Like, I think of like
and he gave
my
her a
own.
hat.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think of like my own like connections with like estranged family members who are like so pro Trump and hate me now because I do leftist politics online.
Damn.
But like these are people that are just so bought into like, I will excommunicate my family in order to maintain this like level of reverence for Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I agree with Chris that like, you know, this generation can only last so long. But my worry is like, do you guys think that when Gen Z or millennials do come into the prominent roles of power, do they do the same thing?
I think I think they're further to the right. I think young Republicans.
Interesting.
I think young Republicans are
those people for sure. But I think that that's a minority amongst the younger generations. Certainly.
Right.
I mean, amongst young men, maybe, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true of the Republican Party in America. It might well be. But in the UK, the traditional Conservative Party is no longer seeing that kind of thing. Because there's a famous, I think it's Churchill, he's like, everyone's a liberal because they have a heart when they're young. And then as their brain develops, they become a conservative. I've butchered that, but whatever it is. Anyway, apparently that's just not happening anymore of like young people aging and becoming conservatives. It's not happening anymore. Good. And I do wonder, but the bigger problem for now or the bigger issue I think now, especially in somewhere like America, is so many people becoming disaffected and disconnected entirely from politics. Because, you know, I talk to people around me who are not that political, who are like, fuck, Palestine is awful for me. I didn't care about politics anyway, but finding out, you know, in the UK, for example, that the Labour Party doesn't give a shit about Palestine, it's not making my life materially any better, why would I vote? And, you know, in America, you kind of wonder what happens to all these disaffected young people who no longer feel that they want anything to do with the Republican Party and also neither want anything to do with the Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why the Democratic Party has like a 27% approval rating. It's because even in the face of Donald Trump and this so obvious corruption, people don't see that there's an opposition party that's actually working for them. And some people say that is like the catalyst for a new party to arise. And I welcome that if we're able to build the infrastructure to do that. But I also think that like, this is the entry point for people into politics beyond just like, I'm going to vote every 2 years. I can build the power myself with my community members. And I think like the whole thing with like Hasan getting subpoenaed, like I'm glad somebody's finally holding him accountable for like a lot of the dangerous rhetoric and crimes that he's committed on our country.
Yeah.
But I think that like the boomers that are like upset with this obviously think, you know, they have been pushed and propagandized to like this free speech absolutism for so many decades. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Donald Trump is just completely going against that is like, I'm sure that there has to be this like internal conflict within themselves of like, well, do I listen to what I've been saying that I actually believe in, or do I immediately adopt Donald Trump's new position like they've done with, you know, the Iran war and everything else?
You would think there'd be some sort of like prevalent cognitive dissonance there, especially with like the Mahmoud Khalil stuff, because I was so brazenly an affront to free speech.
Yep.
But again, like I don't think there are genuine virtues being held here. I think it's just team sports for a lot of these people. So, I mean, but yeah, a friend of the show, Hasan Piker, is no longer a friend of the show because of his brutal actions of supplying aid to the Cubans who the Americans have been strangulating for the past, how many decades now?
No, when we get that mugshot of him, I'm going to feel so relieved that our country's safe again.
Dude. Is he actually subpoenaed now?
He said no. He said he hasn't received anything yet, so I don't know.
But are these just rumors? Like, where's it coming from?
It's so weird
Fox
because
News.
Fox
it came
News,
from Fox.
Seemingly Fox News has been just kind of spying on him in the month leading up to this and like taking pictures.
I saw that
his
with him and Kaya. That's crazy.
And him and Kaya, and he said on stream a few days ago that he hasn't actually received a subpoena. So it's not to say that it's not coming, but I guess it could. But it's also worrisome because like Hasan, this is a guy who's got a lot of money. He's probably going to be okay defending himself because it's such an obvious nothing burger. But what seems to be on the horizon is similar going after the smaller creators who went to Cuba, like on the convoy. Like we have friends like aforementioned Lily, as well as our a good friend James, friend of the show. Both of them went to Cuba, and my concern is, do they have the material means to defend themselves if the fucking treasury decides to go after them?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Very bad precedent for the crime of delivering humanitarian aid. It's a very American problem. Strangle a country and then your citizens can't even help.
No, I think it just visualizes like the idea that if you don't worship at the altar of empire, you're going to get the hammer thrown at you. And like, this is not a country that values diversity of thought or a marketplace of ideas when you are punished for dissenting against the government too much.
Yeah.
And I think it's like very akin to the way Palestinian protesters or pro-Palestinian protesters were treated under the Trump and Biden administration, which is that you can protest against your government and their actions, but you can't protest too hard because then we will come after you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what's the point of a First Amendment if you can't protest even the most egregious violations that your government is committing, or you're going to get the hammer thrown at you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess in the UK as well, you know, you see this kind of stuff happening with activism around Palestine. And especially the mad thing is the free speech in America, how you can, like, you know, how people are allowed to go out on the street and support whatever organization that they want. Whereas in the UK, you know, even Palestine Action, which was literally just an organization that attacked Israeli weapons factories, is designated as terror organization. And if you know, they were arresting people who had T-shirts that said Plasticine Action on. And I remember
crazy.
a lady who got arrested, I saw her at the protest. She had a sign that says, I support Palestine, full stop. Action is needed.
And did she get arrested?
Yeah, she got arrested.
Fuck off. Seriously?
Yeah, I know.
Was she held in like a cell, or did she get charges, or do you know the extent?
I don't actually know if she got charges. I do know that a friend of mine was arrested for chanting "Globalize the Intifada" a short while ago, and it was dropped against them. But now they're pursuing it, like against other people. I don't think he is being pursued, but other people have been pursued for saying "Globalize the Intifada" at a protest. And whereas in America they're chanting like crazy shit.
Yeah.
So at least you have that.
You have at least like 4 protesters outside the White House that are like, Trump needs to die, like every single day. And it is kind of crazy that like how authoritarian it is, like that those people are just chilling there. It's like, damn.
Wow.
I do actually remember one thing that we didn't have on the document, but I guess would be fun to talk to you about quickly. What do you make of political violence in America at the moment? Like this random, bizarre political violence that is just...
For the sake of YouTube, No Politic here does not support political violence. We just understand it to be an inevitable constant, and we have no opinion about it, moral or not. Okay, go for it. Sorry.
I'm talking here specifically about these random disaffected people who don't even really have politics. Like the guy who shot Charlie Kirk seemingly just didn't like Charlie Kirk because he was mean to trans people.
Yeah, or even like Luigi Mangione. Like, there's so many people that like hold him in reverence as like this leftist king. This guy was like a trad cath.
Yeah.
Like
he had Ayn Rand
some
books in his...
Yeah, and you know the first person he wrote a letter to when he was in prison? You can fact check this. Patrick Bet-David, valuetainment.
He's a numbers
crazy?
guy.
Go watch Patrick Bet-David read the letter written to him by Luigi Mangione. I saw so many leftists that were like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, yes, I've been saying this, like, you know, I understand why so many people felt heard by Luigi Mangione's actions, but he's not like this left-wing, like, ideologue. He wasn't a fucking Marxist. He just hated the private insurance industry, and he's like, I'm going to take matters in my own hands, and he did his vigilantism. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think, like, political violence, it especially in a culture like America where not just gun violence, but violence in general is so fetishized, that I think that it breeds this culture of like, I've talked about this a lot too when criticizing true crime, that there's this like innate cultural attractiveness about these like violent actions that I think creates people to like go to that as the conclusion for them to get relevance in culture, or just for like their self-justification for nihilism. Like it is a weird psychological analysis, but so many of these people who commit random acts of violence are these like political nihilists who just feel like nothing's going to change or they can't do anything, and they result or they go to these extreme actions. And the fact that there's no coherence to it, I think kind of is the point, is that it is like this nihilistic behavior. It's why so many school shootings happen from people who like, you know, have their whole lives ahead of them, and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to throw it all away because of, you know, this like obsession with gun culture. Did you guys watch The Drama?
Is it a show? It's called The Drama?
Oh, no, it's the film. It's the film with
Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. Well, spoiler alert, but that movie does a great job of visualizing the way that school shootings are portrayed in America.
Is that what it's about? School shooting?
Yeah, so I'll give a small summary. Zendaya is marrying Robert Pattinson. They are like getting married, and they met when they're like in their mid-20s. And 4 days before the wedding, she reveals in like a drunken confession that she planned a school shooting when she was younger, when she was like 15. And Robert Pattinson has to deal with that this whole movie of like, oh my God, like, can I marry this person? And the question really is like, you know, do you really know the person that like you're in a relationship with? But it shows her like when she's planning the school shooting, and it seems like it's for very trivial reasons. Like she gets bullied a little bit, but nothing too intense. And the whole question of the movie is like, how could someone like this woman plan like a school shooting in that act of violence? And the point is, it's just so infested in American culture to where these are like attractive aspects of like finding community and like online radicalism. And you can even see that with a lot of these like shooter backgrounds is a lot of them are on these online forums that like push for this violent action. And it's all of these people that are just nudging each other. And sometimes it's like this irony poisoning of like, I don't actually plan on doing these things, but wouldn't it be so fucking sick if someone did it? And you nudge people hard enough to where this spreads in like a community that's insulated and antisocial, you're going to get people that actually commit these acts of violence. And I think that's why we see it in America is because we're so alienated, and bringing it back to capitalism. But the fact that we don't have genuine community here pushes people to these isolated parts of the internet where these types of instances are encouraged.
I mean, to be honest, that is actually a crazy, crazy topic that is worth doing. It feels like the kind of thing that's like worth a whole podcast of just talking about how, I mean, Isaac, you probably have I don't know. Have you ever heard of 764, Isaac?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The like online Roblox related, began on Roblox, that is literally just a game of killing people that like Anders Behring Breivik is the hero of, but not even just because Breivik murdered, massacred huge amounts of leftists, literally just because he killed loads of people. Same with Brennan Tarrant. Most of them don't give a fuck that Brennan Tarrant killed huge amounts of Muslims. Most of them are just like, yeah, this guy killed a lot of people. I wonder if we can match that. There was a case in the UK, like, where the guy's only motivation was just killing a number of people. It's almost like this transnational disaffection, and you're right, alienation, and probably also a destruction of community that has just led to this kind of stuff. You know,
and also, if we don't have anything to kind of offer these people, that leaves this angst completely to the power vacuum of the right. Like that's gonna, not even like the right, just kind of unprincipled, senseless violence. When you can organize this, you could structure this feeling into something that can actually yield an emancipatory result. But I wouldn't even know how to start organizing such a thing, because
it's also, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just these forums and everything are so decentralized, and I don't know, how would you go about that? Like infiltrate all of them? Or are you just on poll? Like, how do you do it?
They're so purposeless too, like a lot of the forums, which I think makes it more sinister, or maybe just like, you know, cynical. And I think a lot of it too, I hate to be the boomer that's like, it's the damn phones. But I do think that the internet desensitizes people to violence at such an extreme degree.
For sure. Twitter.
Like the fact that I was watching like live leak shit when I was like 8 or 9 is crazy thinking about that. Like no moderated internet.
Yeah.
And the fact that now, like you're saying, Isaac, on Twitter, I'll be scrolling at like some bullshit leftist memes, and then I'll see some dude get like ran over by a truck, and I'm like, oh fuck. And then I just keep scrolling, and I'm just like, when I think back on that in like the bigger picture, I'm like, that's fucking crazy that like I feel no like sense of like emotional distress watching someone get killed on my cell phone, because I've seen it so much.
I still do, man. This is what weirds me out about the Twitter algorithm, because usually algorithms want to feed you the things that you seek out. I hate gore. I never watch it. I always flick away. Yeah. And it still gets shown to me on Twitter, and I fucking despise it. So I don't know what's wrong with this algorithm that just keeps showing this. And same with my girlfriend. Like, she sees it too, and she's like, she fucking gets really squeamish about it. I don't know why.
I'm sure that it just like gets the clicks, and that's why it's pushing it, because it knows that it's like controversial. But it's crazy. It's crazy what you can see on Twitter that you can find nowhere else on the internet, except for like 4chan or something.
It's also kind of crazy that it's all in part because Elon Musk just decided to build a Twitter platform that served his own bizarre interests.
Yeah.
Like this platform that was all about, oh, this is what I'm interested in. And it has just increasingly created this utterly deranged platform that, you know, loads of people were like, oh, it was once a leftist bastion. Come on, it was owned by billionaires. It always suppressed freedom of speech.
Jack Dorsey, my leftist Marxist king. Love him.
But like, yeah, it's like this takeover, and all the people who left post takeover of Elon Musk, I can see why people left, because it's like obscene now, and it really is like a Nazi platform in many ways. But also, you know, was it ever really good, and was it ever really like a productive thing to be getting up to? Probably not.
Not really.
Yeah, if you want great Twitter content, you should follow OneHandPolitics. It's a great account.
True.
Posts great things. But I do have a question for you guys. What's your thoughts on the whole Ashley Sinclair reversal?
Oh,
I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. I saw her on Hasan's stream, and I also see her like on Twitter kind of making videos about it. Part of me is skeptical. I'm not sure how sincere she is about this, but you know, I'm also the type to give people chances. Like I've not tapped in enough to say that she's making this shit up or not. So if this is what she says she is, she believes that she's, you know, had a left-wing awakening or whatever, and she's woke now. I don't care. Do it. Go for it. And if I see you do something fucked up, then I'm going to withdraw my conditional support.
I just kind of like learning more about the weird man that is Elon Musk. Like any more information that I can learn about him, I'm intrigued by. And so, you know, if she's telling me stuff about Elon Musk, wow, I love to hear it. Because he's such he's such a bizarre, risible figure. So I don't know. I maybe she hasn't really changed. Maybe she hasn't really reversed. It's hard to erase years of bigotry, and also dating and having a child with Elon Musk is strange. I find it strange that Grimes did. I mean, she's quite a strange individual. She still hangs around Curtis Yarvin and stuff. In my
he quote tweeted me today. Curtis Yarvin.
Who?
Curtis Yarvin.
No.
Whoa.
Yeah. No, really? What did he quote tweet and
I don't
say?
know. He got mad at me. I don't know if I was like, I just woke up and I saw it. I was like, what the fuck's this loser want? But he quote tweeted one of my tweets about October 7th. I can try and find it.
That's crazy. Yeah, with the Ashley Sinclair thing, I also am like a rehabilitative person. I think, you know, if people want to change, then great. I find, and I also understand, like, growing up homeschooled like she did, it's really easy to fall into indoctrination and this propaganda. But when it comes to like open arm embrace from like left-wing people, I do think that there has to be like a level of skepticism that remains. And just because you change your political positions, I don't know if that means that you deserve like a platform in which like you're still like this voice of political thought for people. Like I view the same thing with Andrew Schultz. I know there's a lot of people on the left that were like, fuck you, when he started going against Trump. He's a comedian. I don't know if you all know him, but he's big in the the red pill space. Yeah, Schultz.
Yeah.
And so he's been shitting on Trump for Epstein, for Iran, for virtually everything about the administration, basically saying I was wrong and encouraging him. And I think that it's good that he has a platform of millions of people that he's telling that to. Like, surely that'll change the mind of some people, or at least make them more skeptical. But I don't think we need to like adopt him as like, see, we got Andrew Schultz. He's our left-wing guy now. Like, we don't have to bring him in. But on the flip side, we don't have to criticize him. And like, to the extent that I've seen some left people do, of like, we knew this. We were telling you this all along, you stupid dumbass. Because I think that like creates this like nihilism for people, where you develop like another Joe Rogan figure who's like, I love RFK now. And then like tangentially, whoever RFK supports, you'll support like Donald Trump. Like, I think that was a big blunder of the left, was not that we should have embraced Joe Rogan, but I think the fact that we made him like national headlines on like every criticizable thing that he says, I really think pushed him further to the right than he already was, like, naturally.
Yeah, I think as well, like on these sort of right-wing figures, I do find it interesting because Tucker Carlson, I'm very wary of especially channeling energy around Palestine into kind of the rehabilitation of the American empire, and particularly the way in which, you know, a lot of people, I will say a lot of people have had smoke for a lot of leftists, but kind of for some reason don't talk as much about Tucker Carlson, and a lot of it is critique around relations with imperialism. But Tucker Carlson was at the White House when all the oil execs were there talking about what to do with Venezuela. Yeah, he was there, and he did look a bit out of place, but Trump still called him, or I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but in 2019, Trump called off a bombing of Iran that was about to happen. And one of the reasons was because Tucker Carlson told him to do so, apparently. Although it's also apparently to do with the casualties inflicted on Iranians, that Iranians may have responded in a way that would have spiraled and escalated and continually been a problem. And Trump had his hands tied a little more by who was around him at that point. But anyway, so I do kind of worry about these people. But then simultaneously, I'm like, Tucker Carlson's talking to Nick Maynard today, and Nick Maynard, if you guys don't know him, Nick Maynard is a British surgeon. I've met him, actually. I met him at a Palestine event. I did a panel with him. And Nick Maynard is a surgeon who was in Gaza, who is not like an incredibly famous figure. And having him on to talk about what he saw in Gaza, is a pretty impressive thing to have done. It is a really... I will say it's commendable, and talking to Albanese and discussing what the Trump administration did to her and things like that. And I will never wholeheartedly be like, everyone should endorse this guy. And I think we should talk about how the fact that he is still an imperialist, 100%. But I also won't sit there and be like, Tucker Carlson has no right to talk about this, because maybe he is using it for bad interest, but he is talking to genuinely really important people, and people who most people wouldn't even bother to speak to, you know? And most people would just disregard and be like, I'm not interested.
I don't see anything wrong with, like, a guy like Tucker Carlson. Sure, like, do I believe he has the purest intentions? No, I don't. But at the same time, this is a guy who witnessed what we witnessed for the past few years, which is shredded children, right? So that's going to change people's minds. Like, sure, he might have very shitty right-wing domestic politics. It's not hard to believe that a guy saw what we saw and thought, oh, that's fucked up, regardless of his domestic politics. And when I think about a person's domestic politics, let's take AOC, for example, I'd agree with her on some things domestically, probably more than I disagree with her on when it comes to domestic politics. But when it comes to her foreign policy, I actually think I would agree with Tucker Carlson's foreign policy more than I would with AOC's, because AOC is very limp-wristed, very, yeah, sure, we'll give some funding to the Iron fucking Dome. All right, whatever. I would side with MTG on that, and I dislike MTG. I think she's better when it comes to the Israel problem than AOC. But
sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I view both MTG and Tucker Carlson as opportunists that see that the potential for the future fascist project is to adopt these like symbolic anti-Israel points. And I mean, it's the same thing with why, like, for a long time, Tucker was very buddy with Nick Fuentes, even though now they have like a public feud or whatever. But I think that they recognize that, like, the American electorate is moving away from this, and they have an opportunity to get ahead of the curve and be the right-wing figures that say, look, we don't have to be woke and gay in order to be anti-Israel. I mean, Tucker Carlson is selling merchandise that like has the F slur on his hat, saying like, yeah, he's saying Zionists are F slurs. So it's like, this guy is very clearly like, he utilizes this movement as like a way to put himself before the curve is going to change like re-solidify like this right-wing position. That's how I feel about it.
I too think he's an opportunist, by the way. I do think he's I just think he's an opportunist that we can kind of use. I know you're not like a Tucker
Carlson fan, unless you do have an FAG hat back there.
Yeah, I do actually. I wear it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've never had much sympathy for him at all. Like, I've spoken a lot. I've always found Candace Owens to be a particularly more horrifying figure, in the sense of Candace Owens is really interested in like old school anti-Semitism, which I haven't seen Tucker Carlson do as much. Someone in my chat noted that does great replacement theory stuff, but the great replacement theory, and I know some people will be like, this is crazy, is not always anti-Semitic. Often it is, but it isn't always. That not everyone blames Jewish people. So Viktor Orban's a perfect example of this. Sometimes he's just like, it's the globalist technocrats, but then sometimes he'll go, actually, George Soros is importing immigrants to our country because he's like a Jewish billionaire or whatever, whereas some of the time he won't use it in an always anti-Semitic way. So like Tucker Carlson's spreading of that is obviously morally repugnant, and I said I was very troubled by that, and I think some people didn't appreciate it as much, of like the treatment of immigrants in my country, the treatment of immigrants. The UK had full-blown race riots not long ago, and it's hardly surprising that there are a lot of people who are really wary of people like Tucker Carlson and the ends that they plan to use Palestine for. But I will say it is pretty impressive, some of the stuff he's done in relation to it in comparison to what other people are willing to do. Because, Albanese is not... Like, bringing Albanese on, Albanese would classify as pretty woke and gay, in my opinion, with what she's been up to in the occupied territories.
She's a beauty, man. She's such a fucking legend.
On that note, seeing as we've reached 2 hours, shall we end it there?
I gotta pee real bad.
I knew you would.
Yeah, I've been holding.
Okay, perfect. Well, I guess we'll close it up there. Thank you, everyone, for watching yet another episode of No Politic Here. If you've enjoyed it, drop us a like. And Mason, thank you so much for coming on. You already shouted out your Twitter, but where can people find you? Yeah.
No, I appreciate both of you having me. Big fan of both your work. So just appreciate you being in the space. I think it's important to make sure that people are as informed as possible, especially when there's a lot that's hidden behind the background, at least for American politics. I know both of you have a good, sizable American audience, which is great because you have freedom in your blood. You feel that red, white, and blue.
Hell yeah.
But, yeah, you can find me anywhere at OneHandPolitics. It's all the same. I mostly stream on Twitch, but I'm most active probably on Twitter. I'm on Instagram too, TikTok. We're building the infrastructure.
Amazing.
The Mason Revolution is coming.
Amazing. Bro, thank you so much for coming on. Like, I really am always intrigued by everything you have to say. I find you very insightful. So we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, look out for this. Probably will be out by the time this video releases, but I got to talk to Dave Rubin.
No way.
One of my biggest inspirations.
On what?
Yeah. On a Jubilee, on a Surrounded.
Oh, fuck yeah,
I got
dude.
to talk about his Russian money. I got to talk about him sucking Trump's dick in a homophobic way. It was great.
Did you talk to him about Iran?
It was brought up. I don't know if I brought it up, but yeah, he did the whole thing where it's just Islamophobic, like bullshit. That's how he justifies Iran. He's a huge, just sick a fan of Donald Trump, which is funny because he was one of the biggest critics. He was like a big DeSantis guy back in the primary, but now he's just completely gone MAGA off the rails. He's one of like 5 people in conservative media that still just like adopt whatever Trump's position is as their own position. It's crazy.
Damn. That's good for him, man. He's the last trooper. He's the last real trooper.
He's the Japanese soldier still fighting World War II.
Exactly. He'll never surrender.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you to our supporters on Patreon, with a special thanks to Zani, Ashley the Oxalotl, Megan Ratana, Storm Daughter, Clara Mayella, Cedar Down Under, Riker G, Jamo, Space, Soph, and Demon Lemon.